seat taken?
Nobody's in the seat, then I ain't taking, son.
So this is, Sabacc?
Sabacc.
Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Sabacc the Block, the official first cut Star Wars show. Every week we have a different guest, and this week we have another very special guest. We have Arezou in the house. Arezou, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Arezou obviously was on my Ray panel, but she also covers other movie news and movie coverages through Collider and through Geeky Waffle, right? Talk to me a little bit about Geeky Waffle.
So Geeky Waffle started as a project with my co-host Candace and a couple of her friends, just as sort of a way to talk about anything geeky. And then during the pandemic, I joined the team. I kind of strong-armed my way in there talking about Kylo Ren, and they were like, yes, come on in. And then, since the site has like spun off into like 7 or 8 podcasts, reviews, stuff like that. So it's very like niche geeky coverage, like whatever excites us specifically.
Can you give me an example of something?
So on the site, I do romance novel reviews because I really like romance novels. We have a Stargate podcast. We have a Taylor Swift podcast. We've got Space Waffles, our Star Wars podcast. We're doing one on Disney Channel original movies, like things that are nostalgic to us, things that we love. So yeah.
That's epic. That's super freaking cool. And I know I talked to you a little bit before we went on air about your Padme panel that you guys are. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So at Star Wars Celebration in London, we are, the Geeky Waffle is, I should say, hosting a panel on Padme Amidala and her influence on the galaxy and on prequel kids. So it's both like her in-universe influence on like Mon Mothma and Bail and the Rebellion and all that, but also like the influence she had on us growing up and kind of how we see Star Wars and how we see ourselves and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Do you have a panel location, time, and all that?
Nothing yet.
Not yet.
We're waiting to find out. We all feel like we're in limbo.
Yeah, most people don't. I don't have one for my panel that I'm not going to either. So I totally get that. But that's super cool. I can't wait for anyone who's going to Star Wars Celebration to check that out because that's
we
epic.
are also going to be recording it, so you'll be able to watch it.
Nice.
You're not in London as well.
That's epic. That's super freaking cool. I love Padme and she's always been one of my favorite characters. And the significance of her character now is just astronomical when you consider just the political angle of what Star Wars has become. And especially during like these crazy times that we live in now, what Padme can represent to another generation could be very interesting as well. So that's super cool that you guys are doing that. So we start off our show every week the same way, which is telling us your personal Star Wars story. So Arezou, what is your Star Wars story?
So my Star Wars story, my origin story, is when I was 8, the VHSs had just come out and Phantom Menace was around the corner. So my parents, because they are both huge nerds, were like, okay, it's time. Our kids are watching Star Wars. So they kind of sat my brother and I down one afternoon and we just binged the whole thing. And I remember kind of falling off a little in the middle. I'm like, I don't really know what's going on. But by Return of the Jedi, it kind of picked back up and I was like, okay, I get this. I like this. And then Phantom Menace came out and that was kind of a big obsession. Because I don't know if you remember, like the marketing around the Phantom Menace was inescapable. So it was all any of us were talking about. It's still seared in my brain. And then, it was just kind of always like a part of my life, like a comfort thing in the back. And then the sequel trilogy got announced. And I was like, okay, it's time. We're diving in. We're really going for it. And right around the time of The Last Jedi, it had just come out. And I loved it. And somebody I know didn't. And we had a huge argument about it. And I was like, well, I'm going to be prepared next time. So I decided to read all of the canon books to argue my point better next time. We never discussed it again, but I'm like, well, I'm in too deep now.
Yeah, might as well keep going. Yeah. That's incredible.
Like my English degree side jumped out. I'm like, we're going to research our argument. And then I was like, but this is all so great. So like the conversation was long gone, but I'm just loving all of the expanded stories now.
Yeah, of course. That's crazy. I feel like it's so that's so similar to mine, and I know obviously a lot of people's, but I feel like we might be close in generation or age,
Hmm.
because I also watched the VHS re-release, which I
Yeah.
believe was like 97,
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
And then it was just right before, I remember that because it was right before Phantom Menace came out. And then when Phantom Menace came out, that's when I got the theater experience, and that's when my whole life changed, which was the prequels. So it's a very similar Star Wars experience that I feel like a lot of people have gone through. So that's epic. I feel like
Yeah.
that's
That's how
what's
they
a
got us.
yeah, what's a speaking of that, I feel like I've been asking this ever since a couple of the guests came on. What's a memorable like theater experience? One that you will like cherish forever.
It's not the prequels, it's The Force Awakens. I was in grad school at the time, out of the country, and my brother got opening night tickets, and he's like, I got you one. And I'm like, I will be on a plane when you're in the theater, so I can't go with you. So he's like, okay, I'll get 2 more tickets and we'll go the next day. I'm like, okay. So I am like at the airport waiting to leave, like surfing Facebook, and somebody spoiled The Force Awakens for me in a Facebook comment. So I come home, I tell my brother what they spoiled, and he's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's not true. It doesn't happen. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go into The Force Awakens, totally clean, going, well, that's not happening. So the spoiler was that Kylo Ren kills his father, Han Solo. And my brother's like, that doesn't happen. That's not a thing. So then they reveal that Kylo Ren is Han Solo's son. And I just gave him this accusing look. And he's like, well, that part was true, but I didn't want to tell you the whole thing. I didn't want to, trip up. But that part was true, but the other part's not true. I'm like, okay, cool. Then he kills Han Solo, and he's like, sorry, you looked so upset. I'm like, no, I really appreciate like him undoing the spoiler and trying to like preserve the experience. I'm never going to forget that.
I do the exact same thing. I actually think I tweeted a reply for you. I think it was you who did one. It might have been The Last Jedi. I'm not even sure, about Yoda.
Yeah.
But I did the exact same thing with I do it all the time with my family and my parents, but I never forget I did it with my mom when she was like, I heard Yoda's in The Last Jedi. I'm like, Yoda? He's not showing up. Come on now. And then when Yoda comes out, she's like, what? You told me he wasn't going to be in this one, but she loves Yoda. So
you have to salvage that experience.
You have
if somebody
to.
else
Yeah.
if somebody else spoils it.
Sometimes you gotta like throw some cap in there, and make sure people experience that the right way. Yeah, The Force Awakens is that was insane. Like it was absolutely bonkers. That whole release, that whole premiere. I remember I bought tickets, right? It was like the old school, not super old school, but the like you have to buy tickets quick kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you secure your tickets, I bought tickets for everyone in my office, which was about like 12 or 13 people, back when I was working for this company. And obviously they all paid me back, but I secured all those tickets, secured this entire row of seats. And then it was the Universal City Walk. I don't know if you've been there.
I have.
Which during this time, at least in 2015, there wasn't a assigned seating. So it was just first come, first serve, which means I took the day off of work to line up to get these seats while everyone else was still at work. Me and my roommate went and lined up at like 1:30 p.m., like 1, for like a 8 o'clock showtime. And we did it the old-fashioned way, which is what I did for Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, like the literal old school lineup kind of style. And that was just obviously a memorable moment besides the film itself, which was incredible.
Pre-lockdown.
That's incredible.
Pre-lockdown, our theaters here only had some theaters where you could reserve seating, and the rest was like a free-for-all. So my brother and I like booked tickets in the reserved seating theaters. We're like, we are not going to make it to the lineup. Like we got to run from home. So we just were like, they were actually really good seats too. They were like right in the middle. But we specifically booked the more expensive reserved seat one because we're like, we're not taking chances.
It's crazy. It's so weird how like I think about it now, how like everything is reserved seating now, like literally everything, to the point now that I remember like early MCU days where I had to line up for Captain America First Avenger, for example, and my brother and I would line up like 3 hours early to get the best seat that we can possibly get. And now that's like ancient. If you mention that on TikTok or something, the kids are going to be like, are you like 100? because that's like insane for them. But yeah, that's incredible, Arezou. That's a really cool story. Let's get to the green Psylop for this week.
If you'd only had this little green Psylop.
Our green Psylop for this week is about the Bad Batch season 2, the most recent episode. Arezou, what'd you think about this last episode?
This last episode surprised me because last week I had kind of convinced myself of a sequence of events, none of which happened, which I honestly think is fine. I think what I had kind of had in mind was a little predictable. So I think what I've been liking about the season overall is the kind of like one-off episodic missions that kind of paint a picture of the larger galaxy and the struggles as a whole. And this episode was like another example of that, as opposed to what I kind of had assumed was going to happen. So yeah, I like enjoyed it.
Yeah. What'd you think about the themes in the story, in the episode? I mean, where it's the classic Star Wars greedy corporate, guy who's stealing from disenfranchised youth. I mean, we've seen this obviously in a lot of Star Wars media, but the first thing that came to mind for me was the White Worms with Solo and Kira and Han. But how'd you feel about those themes of like greediness, exploitation, all that kind of stuff that was in this episode?
I think the best way any media can depict that kind of greediness and exploitation, like you say, is the way they did it here, where they paint like this picture of the one person that benefits, or like the few people at the top that benefit, and the lengths they'll go to keep everybody else so preoccupied with fighting each other and competing with each other that they never take the time to look beyond that, because their survival depends on them fighting each other. Like, these kids don't eat if they're not out competing each other, and it doesn't matter that their boss is hiding his accounts from them and hiding money from them and deliberately starving them, because that's like too high a consideration for people whose like main problem is, am I going to eat today?
Yeah, no, it was really well done. I also kind of like the fact that Benny, our main protagonist for this little side story, was defending Mako all the time. He was like, no, he's got my back. No, he gives me food. Like, he's actually a good guy. And he kept trying to defend that to himself, even though he probably realized there were moments of creeping doubt several times in his life, but still he would defend him to strangers because that's kind of all he's known. But also the idea of how I felt like this episode was just so clearly about corporations in general.
Yeah.
And how this is just corporate America and how just greediness works, where you pit people against each other, you take all the money, and then anything good that they do, you just give it to yourself. And then you have them kind of struggle to survive with literal basic stuff like food and water, which I thought was very interesting that they went there. How'd you feel about that kind of aspect to it?
I like it when something does like subtle character growth, but I think Star Wars's plots are best served when they're like, we're not joking around here, we're not being subtle here, this is what the problem is, let's address it. So something as basic as like food and water, they're like, no, it's a kid like Benny stuck in this situation where he is defending the person causing his misery because it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, like he gets just enough kindness from him that he can brush the red flags under the rug. And he's like, no, but he's my friend, he's my buddy, he's got my back, he feeds me. But it's so on the nose, but in a way that I think like benefits the story. Like, I don't say that in a bad way.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I feel like it's definitely appropriate too for a younger audience, right? Where we can, this is kind of the first episode, that's what I was feeling when I was watching it, that we see Omega go on her own side mission completely by herself when she goes off with Benny, and she has to explore the world and explore a different side of the galaxy, a darker side of the galaxy by herself, without context, without Hunter being like, this is what this means, this is what that means.
Yeah.
And she can get it through her own little girl POV. And I feel like that is very much done on purpose for maybe a younger audience who can kind of put themselves in the shoes of a Benny or an Omega.
Yeah, because I feel like maybe, like you say, like a younger audience, if Hunter is just standing there explaining it, a younger audience like Omega will just take that on and be like, okay, because that's what the grown-up says, that it is what it is. But for Omega and Benny to slowly kind of piece together what's going on in terms of like the way the workers are being exploited, in terms of like the Ipsium not actually degrading and how the profits are actually quite high. And they like piece it together slow enough that I think a younger audience can piece it together with them. And then they can also sort of see, I guess, where the problems are and where the pieces are. And then, not that this is something every child deals with all the time, but then can sort of, as they get older, start to see these pieces in real life. Hopefully they'll keep this with them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hope so. I really do feel like I really like these kind of like little mini one-off episodes, but I like that they have very strong thematic elements. And like you said, very on the nose, not subtle or quiet or in the background, but it's very much like, this is what's going on and this is what's wrong. Which is what Star Wars.
Sometimes you need that.
Yeah, I really do feel like that. And I feel like, especially now with, obviously with Star Wars, but now in media in general, where I feel like media literacy, I have like 20 threads in my head as far as what I was going to type on Twitter, but about how media literacy is just so dead, to the point that you can take shows that are beating you on the head with a thematic element, and they would still be like, no, it's about this crazy guy. And it's like, no, it's about capitalism and about how awful it's been for these people. The first example that comes to mind is like Squid Game, for example, where people were like, that's not what it's about. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yes, it is.
Media literacy is so dead. It's not even funny. It's bad.
Like, I'm positive there's people out there who can take today's episode within the like the worst faith reading possible.
Yes.
Be like, no, it's just about this one bad guy.
Yeah.
And corporations aren't all bad. And like, what that's not the point. The point is that he only profits because he's profiting off the back of a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I love the Bad Batch. I like what it's doing this season. Are you on board with this season so far?
I'm liking this season more. Like, I think there were elements of last season that I really enjoyed, but I like that this season gives everybody like their own time, their own episode. Like, you know, they can go off and do their own thing. So they're not operating as kind of this singular unit, but we're kind of getting to know each member a little better.
Yeah.
I am sad that Echo left, because Echo was my favorite Bad Batcher. But I'm hopeful he'll come back. He's not gone forever. But by and large, like, yeah, I am enjoying kind of this more specific focus on each member and like the smaller stories of what's going on around the galaxy, because I feel like that's a story we've been missing in visual media. I mean, we got that in Andor. That was a very specific story about one very specific person, but that's also geared much older.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
for sure. Yeah. And I totally feel your Echo sadness, because I had the same thing when I first got introduced to the Bad Batch. I was like, I like that Crosshair guy, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh no. I can't like him anymore. But we'll see what happens to Crosshair eventually in the future. But yeah, I totally get that. Let's move on to our full Sabacc for this week.
Full Sabacc.
So our full Sabacc is all about our upcoming or potentially upcoming Star Wars movie that we might get an announcement for during Star Wars Celebration this year in London. I wanted to get your thoughts on pretty much everything across the board, Arezou.
okay.
First off, your thoughts on just the idea of a Star Wars movie finally returning to theaters.
I'm ready. I'm ready for another movie.
Yeah.
I am enjoying the shows. I think it's fun. It's nice to have that little ritual on Wednesdays to just like watch the episode, but I am ready for it to feel like an event again, like a going out event. You know, like that energy in the theater is just unmatched. Like, I have a friend, she's a very good friend now. We met in the lobby for the Rise of Skywalker. Wow. Because like we were both cosplaying and we happened to notice each other's cosplays like across the lineup to get in the theater. She's like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God. And now we are very good friends. I can't do that at home watching a show on the couch. So I'm ready for that kind of like, I don't know, just the energy in the room again.
I'm 100% the same way. I've said it pretty much every week since we started Sabacc, but I feel like there's nothing like a Star Wars movie. As much as I love Star Wars TV shows and I've been loving them, nothing to me has had the same effect. The last time I've ever felt like this energy of a Star Wars feeling was the sequels. Like not the Mandalorian premiere, not, you know, Andor premiere. Like to me, it was the sequels and watching that in theaters. To me, there is nothing like a Star Wars movie, regardless of what it is. But speaking of what it is, do you have a preference as far as which movie you want it to be?
I miss the sequel characters. So I have to not preface this, but I will say I want it to be about the sequel characters, but because what I want is so specific, I'm almost afraid to get that. Because I don't know if you've seen the Lego Star Wars.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Specials. I love where Summer Vacation leaves them, like the four of them, like the missions they're going on. I'm like, if we could send them on those missions and then have them like converge for a movie, having followed those paths, because those were such good paths for them to be on. I'm like, I want that movie. Like, they've all done their thing, and now there's like some problem they all have to come together and solve. I'm like, that would be cool.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be in episode 10, but that would be really cool.
I thought the same thing when I saw that Lego movie. I was like, can this be canon, please?
I loved it.
It was so good.
It
so good, and it made sense. How about what we potentially could get? What do you think is the most likely?
Probably like a Mandoverse Avengers style movie.
What? I've never heard of this.
This is purely because like this is not based on anything except Jon Favreau talking about like, well, they're all a part of each other. So I'm like, what if they just threw them all in a movie? But that's like me guessing on like what's popular right now is like the Mandalorian and the Mandoverse. But then also because movies take so long to make, maybe not. But it could be like the big kind of crossover event that gets like a theatrical release before hitting Disney Plus. Yeah,
that's interesting. I haven't considered that they might pull like a, you know, rabbit out of the hat and be like, we came up with something you guys have never heard of, or something that's not been in the trades. The first thing obviously I think of is the Lindelof one, because I feel like that's the one we've heard the most of. And it's the director of Miss Marvel, Shireen Obaid-Chinoy. She did the big episode for Miss Marvel, the flashback Pakistani.
That was a beautiful episode.
That's the one she did.
I don't know where I pulled this Mandoverse thing from. I really like it. That's the next thing we're getting.
Yeah, this is one that's been in the trades for a little bit, and I feel like the more time goes on, the more people talk about it, and the more people say this is probably what's going to happen. I just sent it to you guys right now, the article for Deadline. But I feel like this is definitely probably the most likely one, which based off what is in this article, it says that it's post sequels, which excites me. So that makes me happy, because I feel like at least we acknowledge the sequels versus like other movies or projects. I don't know.
It makes me so sad. So sad when we're just pretending that they didn't happen. I'm like, right? These were such good characters.
I feel like I feel
so good.
I feel like I've been living in Bizarroverse, because I feel like there's been kind of this like, the sequels, they happened. And I'm just like, why can't we acknowledge the sequels the same way we've acknowledged other Star Wars movies or shows that we have? I just want that.
My best friend recently called me. Her daughter's 13, and she's like, she wants to start watching Star Wars. Where does she start? And at first I was like, oh, should she go chronologically? Should she go like start like in release order? And you know what? Start at episode 7. I'm like, watch 7, 8, 9. Those were made with her generation in mind. And if she likes those, she'll probably like the rest. If like those are the ones she has the best chance of liking. This child loves them. Absolutely loves them. Like loves all the characters, loves the story, loves it enough that she started watching the other stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's who these were for. Like we're sitting here, we love them, but like that's who it was for, and it worked. It hit its target audience.
I've said that so many times, and I've said it to the point that it's just this weird, ignorant factor that we have in this online world that we live in, which is this idea of like the loudest voices, determine what is and what isn't quality, or what is and what isn't popular. When in reality, like I've said a million times, if I text my cousins from South America and I'd be like, yo, you know, wasn't Star Wars, didn't you enjoy Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker or Force Awakens? And they're like, yeah, that was awesome. Like freaking Rey's a badass. Like they don't have YouTube channels to voice their ridiculous opinions. But if you go on YouTube and you type it in, the negativity is just at the top, at the very top. It's kind of hard to like try and find positive, because that's what's hitting. That's what gets clicks and likes. And that's what the algorithm promotes. So it's frustrating to have this like echo chamber of, we don't like the sequels, and it's like, who's we? Who are you talking about? Because the movies made money, all of them made a ton of money, none of them bombed or failed in any way, and a lot of people like them. Most people like them. It's just a weird thing that there's an assumption of dislike where that's not the case. So
it's very loud people kind of informing public opinion for everyone.
Yeah, so obviously we'll see what happens, but if it is post sequels, it's kind of exciting because at least we get an acknowledgement of what's happened with Rey, and with, you know, Kylo and all the storylines that we have in the sequel trilogy. So just the acknowledgement of it, even if it's like a separate storyline, but they're just like, yo, you hear about Rey? Like she took down like 100,000 Star Destroyers and the Emperor by herself. That'd be cool. Like I would appreciate that, even if it is like a new batch of characters.
Yeah, like, which honestly might be easier to like give it a bit of space, and then when they're all a bit older, like the actors from the sequel trilogy a bit older, then we can come and tell that next year, so it doesn't feel quite so immediate.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably where they're gonna go, but obviously we'll see. Let's get to our Force flashback for this week. And our Force flashback is all about Star Wars events and Star Wars gatherings. Now, this was basically based off the article saying that there's not going to be a Star Wars celebration next year, which I thought was kind of funny that everyone went crazy on Twitter about. But there is one in 2025. So it got me thinking about past Star Wars events, past Star Wars panels. Star Wars Night is... ticket sales are going up right now, I think. So it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. But I wanted to ask you, what is a memory or a moment in a Star Wars event or a Star Wars celebration that you will always cherish and that you appreciate?
I've told the story on Twitter, but I'm going to tell it again. It was this past Star Wars celebration, 2022. I had told my friends I was very excited that Obaid-Chinoy, who plays Dr. Pershing on The Mandalorian, was there, because he's my Iranian in space. And he's like the only Iranian in space. I'm like, I will take it. Like, this is very exciting. So I was just excited he was present. And then as we were leaving on the last day, my friend's like, he is right over there. He's like on his way out. He's here. They're like, you have to go talk to him. So they dragged me across the courtyard at the convention center, like me protesting. I'm like, I don't want to bother this man. And they're like, just go say hi. So I said, hi, big fan, this is why. And he's like, oh, like, what's your name? I didn't catch your name. So I told him, and he had remembered me from a stupid joke I tweeted at him when Mando premiered. And I didn't know, I was speechless, because at first I thought he'd seen something like insane that I'd said on Twitter, and that's not what happened. But it was just such a nice, like, full circle moment.
Yeah.
And it was like right as Celebration was dying down, and I was already sad because the closing ceremony had happened, and the what's it called? Like the exhibition hall was closed and everybody was kind of filing out. And just as I was like dropping, it was like the last kind of spike of Celebration excitement. And it was my first ever Star Wars celebration. So like went out on a really high note.
That's incredible. That's super cool. I remember you posted that, and I remember seeing him at Star Wars Celebration. By seeing him, I mean like he was on stage. I think it was the one on the floor.
Oh my God,
I forgot what it was called. But
the Star Wars show stage.
Yeah, and
the Star Wars show stage.
And it kind of bummed me out that he was there, but they didn't really put him on the main panels, because I know they had the Mandalorian panel, which I was there as well, for a Saturday that day, and he wasn't there. And it kind of got me thinking, oh, I thought he was here. But yeah, that's incredible. That's super freaking cool. And I know having some kind of cultural representation is such a big deal. I've talked about it so many times. but I really do feel like it matters and it means a lot. And
Yeah.
seeing these actors be inside your favorite stories and your favorite universes is super epic. I know he's been in some other stuff as well, because I know I've seen that actor.
He's like one of those guys who's like very consistently on TV
Yeah,
in like prestige dramas and stuff. Like I forget the name. I think it's American Gods.
American Gods. He's in
on.
that.
That was
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
he's got a pretty big role in that for sure. I remember
Yeah.
because I saw both seasons of that show.
I'm sure
But
he's
that's
so sick of me talking about Dr. Cushing by now.
I mean, I
Every time
think
something comes up, I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, that's enough.
what's cool is that I feel like he's going to have a major role this season, right? I mean, based off the
Oh, I
trailers that
hope
we
so.
got, it feels like, oh, he's building up to something, and we don't know what that something is. Obviously, some sort of cloning effect, but I feel like he's going to have a major role this season, which is even more epic. But yeah, anytime you meet someone that you interact with on a digital level and then happens to be an actor, you know, I think that would happen to me if I met, like, I don't know, Pedro or Diego
Oh,
Luna.
that would be cool.
That'd be really epic. The one time that I got retweeted by Pedro and then he deleted his account.
Oh
And I
no.
was like, oh no.
But you'll always
Um,
have that.
yeah. Are you which event are you looking forward to? Is it probably this year for London?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to London this year.
Have you been to Europe or
Excited.
London?
Yeah, I've been a few times, like just traveling, and I lived in Switzerland for 2 years.
Oh no way.
For grad school. So right around,
Cool.
like, I lived there from The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. And then I
Whoa.
came back. So yeah.
That's epic. That's so you've been to England a few times then, right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
went a couple times, like with my family, and then while I was there for school, I went once.
That's epic. That was part of the thing that I was like, man, I feel like I'm missing out on just visiting London in general. Like, it's not even
Yeah.
about Star Wars Celebration. It's just like I get to go to London. That'd be cool. But obviously
I
that's
feel
not
like there's
happening.
so much pressure to like pack a Euro trip into this, because if it's just like somewhere in
Yeah.
the States, you like go to the convention and you leave.
Yeah.
But like we're packing in, like, you know, trips to different parts of Europe or just a longer stay in London, and like just
Yeah.
because if you're going all that way.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
I'm going to Paris in
Ooh,
addition, which I've also been
nice.
to, but I
Okay.
just like it. So
Who are you going with?
Candace.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah.
epic. That's really cool. So is it like an extra like week or so that you're staying, or?
We're going to Paris before Celebration, and then we're gonna
Ooh.
take the train to London.
Ooh, nice. That's
Just for a
epic.
few
A
days, but
train. Taking the
the
train has got to
train is
be
so much easier
special.
than flying in, because it's
I
like
bet.
you go from like city center to city center, and it's like 2 hours. So like one of
Wow.
the high speed trains. So yeah.
That's epic. That's super cool. That's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about hearing about Europe. Because again, I've never been. But what I've heard about it is that just taking the train everywhere is like the most clutch thing ever, because you don't have to worry about like securing plane tickets and being like, oh crap, I got to go to this country now and that country there. You could just take the train and it'll take you there, which is insane to me, but it's really cool. That's epic.
Yeah.
I feel like Star Wars Celebration is always going to have like a special place in my heart. Obviously, this last one was great, and I definitely got to experience a lot of new things when it comes to Star Wars fandom in general. And then the idea of going to another Star Wars celebration in 2025 would be special as well. But I also want to give a shout out to like the Hall H Comic-Con events that I went to. I went to the Force Awakens one in 2015.
Oh, nice.
I was there for that one, which was incredible already. And then the other one I experienced in Hall H, which was 2016, I want to say, or 17. But those Comic-Cons, you know, Star Wars wasn't their main thing. It was mainly Marvel, right? But the fact that it was there in that kind of environment, which was a different kind of crowd, was still like super special and super cool. And I got a friend of mine to line up to ask a question to Harrison Ford and the cast of The Force Awakens. So it was really a special event for me as well.
Do you remember what the question was?
The question he asked, so I told him I've been to a lot of cons in the past, and I said I can get you at the mic before everyone else. And I was like, I can line up for you and you can ask the question, because I don't really want to ask a question. But I forgot what he asked. It was something about the experience being back in Star Wars. Something simple like that. It wasn't anything crazy. But I do remember being like, I can get you a question, man. And sure enough, he was like the 6th or 7th person asking a question. Shout out to Mark. That was definitely a fun moment. And then afterwards, they took us on a John Williams concert outside at Petco Park. They just filed us over there. And they gave us all like mini lightsabers and stuff. Like it was just crazy. It was absolutely insane.
That's intense.
It was. And it was my first Comic-Con too, which is like, it adds to
What a Comic-Con.
to the prestige of it. Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. Let's move on to Squad Up with Squad Leader Ace this week. And I'm excited to do this with you, Arezou, because this is supposed to be just a fun event inside the Star Wars universe where you get to pick what characters or what items you would choose within the Star Wars universe. In this episode, I developed this very simple scenario where you are a rebel going on a supply run on a desolate planet. Now, since the terrain is difficult to navigate, you need a few things. First off, you need a creature you can ride and will have your back if anything goes wrong. Second, a navigator who doesn't speak basic but knows the planet enough that you trust them regardless of communication issues. Third, a specific reliable blaster. Now, once you arrive at a certain cantina in the middle of this desolate planet, you can also pick these 2 things. A musical artist from our universe that suddenly gets teleported to the Star Wars universe to perform for you. And finally, a chef from any fictional universe that will make you the perfect meal after your long, grueling journey. So a chef from a fictional, any TV show or universe you want to pick from that will make you the perfect Star Wars meal after your long mission as a rebel. So Arezou, I want to start off with you with picking what creature you're going to use as your horse or as your buddy.
I looked this up and now I'm blanking on the name. The creature that Obi-Wan rides in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
I keep wanting
it's
to
a Varactyl.
Thank you. A Varactyl. I've got Jedi Fallen Order on the brain. I'm like, it's like a bog, but yeah.
Boga the Varactyl is what its name is.
That's what it is. I'd ride a Varactyl because they're fast.
That's always. It's funny because that's what I picked 2 weeks ago. For another question. It was like pick your animal that you're gonna use as a weapon, and I picked the Varactyl. I love the freaking Varactyl. Isn't it the coolest? I freaking love that guy.
They're so cute.
Yeah, and they're like giant and epic. They have an amazing war cry. Just an absolutely amazing Star Wars creature. Well, since you picked that, I'm gonna try and go. You know what? Just because desolate planet, I'm in that kind of mood. I feel like he's like the epitome of like a tough dog, but I'm picking a Rancor.
Oh, nice.
He's gonna give me the height advantage too, just so I can make sure and just like look over anything. I'm gonna be on top of him, making sure I have a good look as far as where I'm headed. But just me on top of a Rancor, just marching around, looking for our way to wherever we're going. Arezou,
Boba Fett of you.
Yeah, Arezou, who's you picking for your navigator who specifically doesn't speak basic, so he could speak Huttese or any other language?
I would be a very bad High Republic fan if I didn't say Geode. Geode's my navigator.
Geode, that's an incredible choice. I feel like this is it's always tough because you want to. There's a lot of choices you can pick, but I kind of want to go with the most simple one of all, but that's just because he's the homie. I'll go with Chewbacca.
There we go.
He's speaking Wookiee to me, and I probably don't understand. I probably don't know the language too well, but I will trust him wherever he leads me. So I'm picking Chewbacca as mine. Now for your specific clutch blaster that you're always going to have at your side.
Okay, this one I have to pull up because I'm like, there's no way. It's Padme's blaster from the Phantom Menace.
Is it the ELG?
Yeah, the ELG 3A.
3A, yeah.
Because, I was 8. she had a really cool, very pretty looking pistol. So I'm like, yeah, I would use that one.
It's one of the best. I did a ranking one time for best Star Wars blasters, just like pure aesthetically. It's definitely one of the best. I put it in top 5 for sure. So that's an incredible blaster. I absolutely love it. It's interesting because I definitely will want to pick a blaster pistol and not a rifle. So I'll probably go with Han's DL-44 as my choice. Powerful, clutch, always at your side. You know, Han uses it. I can sneak in some under the table kills. Whatever I need to do, I will have my DL-44 at my side. I feel like there's so many incredible ones. You know which one I really love? I also love Lando's blaster in Solo, which Kylo uses in The Rise of Skywalker. The name of it escapes me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I can picture it, but I don't know what the name is.
It's like a chrome, super crazy looking blaster. It's the SE14R light repeating blaster. But that one is amazing too. But either way, I'll pick my DL-44. Now, Arezou, once you arrive at the cantina, there's a specified band that just showed up from Earth, and they're just there to play music. They're not going to be taking Q&As or, you know, trying to figure out where they are. They're not going to question it. They're just going to play music.
They're fine with it.
Yeah, they're just like, where are we? It doesn't matter. Venue's a venue. They'll take what they can get. So who is the band that is playing for you after your long mission?
BTS.
Is this the K-pop group?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
the only way I'm
that's
ever
what it
going to be
is.
able to see a BTS concert. So BTS is.
Yeah, I bet. I feel like that would be amazing seats too, right? If it's a smaller cantina,
small venue, sit right.
Yes, right in front. Wow, and there's like 10 of them, right?
7.
So, that's a lot of guys. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's an epic.
Yes.
That's an epic concert, man. I don't even know. That's a good point. I really do feel like you thought this through. You said, "Wait a minute, what concerts is it hard to get front row tickets to?"
Oh God, it's impossible.
So BTS is definitely one.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is another choice.
Oh my God.
Beyonce. Yeah, Beyonce. Like I could pick Beyonce.
Fine for my life for those.
Yeah, I feel like if Beyonce showed up in a cantina, that'd be wild. But you know what would be even more wild? Shout out to Boricuas, to my Boricua gente. I'm picking Bad Bunny.
Nice.
He's gonna have the cantina going nuts. They're gonna be shaking their booties. It's gonna be incredible. If you ever wanted to see all different types of species, just like shaking butt everywhere, Bad Bunny is the one for you. So I'll pick Bad Bunny as my musical act for a cantina. Now, obviously, to finish this all off, you have a super chef from a fictional universe that's got you, like you specifically in mind, in the kitchen, in the back, working on a special meal. Who is your chef?
So when I looked at this initially, I blanked on every single chef I have ever known, except the Swedish chef from the Muppets.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
And I feel like with all the Muppets in the Star Wars universe, he would just fit right in, even though he's not technically from the universe. He'd just have a great time. So I'm going to say the Swedish chef.
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't even consider that one. Wow. Yeah. I feel like what's cool about chefs, though, is that there's so many in so many different universes. Like you could pick, like, I don't know, chef from the Bear FX show.
Yeah, that's true.
You can pick.
Love that show. Love that show.
Yeah, it's a great show. You could pick. I don't know. I feel like there's just so many you can get, but
they're all gonna come to me after this. But right now, I'm just thinking just the Swedish chef.
Just like you, the first thing that came to mind for me, and maybe it's because I have everything everywhere all at once in my head. I'm picking Ratatouille.
Nice.
Ratatouille. A rat's going to show up in the middle of a Star Wars kitchen and just get on top of someone's head and just be like, I got you, bro. Like, I'm going to cook this crazy meal for my homie out there who's listening to Bad Bunny and dancing around the cantina right now. So I'm picking Ratatouille as my chef. Shout out to Rakakuni as well. I think he'd be great. He'd kill it. But so far for me, it'd be Ratatouille. So Arezou, I want to run down your entire list
Yes.
once again. Give me your creature all the way down to your chef.
All right, so I've got a Bractyl. We're navigating with Geode. I have the ELG Blaster.
Yes.
I've got the
ELG
ELG
3A.
Blaster, ELG 3A. We get to the cantina to watch BTS perform right before the Swedish chef makes dinner.
Incredible. Now, for me, I have, what did I say I was writing? A Rancor. And I am getting a Chewbacca Navigator because he's got my back. I have a DL-44 at my side. And once I arrive, I have Bad Bunny performing and Ratatouille with in the kitchen with the treats. I could see like a staff of just people with plates of just some specialized dinner that he created, going around the cantina, making sure everyone gets fed, properly fed. So shout out to Ratatouille for making the best meal in my fictional Star Wars universe. Arezou, thank you so much for coming out to Sabacc the Block. I appreciate your time. I hope you had fun.
I had so much fun.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
So the best place to find me is Twitter. I'm at Arezou Amin. I'm at ArezouD2 everywhere else on all other social platforms. And you can also find my work at Collider. You can find my work at thegeekywalk.com. So yeah.
Nobody's in the seat.
And at
They're taking
RZD2.com.
Oh, nice.
So this
Epic.
is
And obviously,
Sabacc.
guys, you can find me at
Sabacc.
Squad Leader Ace on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at First Cut and First Cut TMO on Twitter and Instagram and on TikTok as well. And also make sure you guys follow RB3. Thank you, RB3, once again for helping me out. Director RB3 on Twitter and Instagram. But either way, for Sabacc the Block and for the First Cut crew, we're going to be peacing out. So deuces.